Olson. I am a literacy and ENVoY coach here at Sunset Terrace. This is my 5th year here.
I am Erin Earl, I'm an early childhood special education teacher, and this is my 4th year with the district.
I'm Danielle Knoll. I'm a first grade teacher here at Sunset Terrace. This is my 5th year at Sunset.
And we also have some amazing other staff members here tonight. All of our administration, Mrs. Hogan, Ms. Lee, and Mr. Peters are all here, as well as we have some great helpers in the back. Jean Dwyer, our school social worker, is here, as well as Sarah Simpson, 2nd grade teacher, and then Hannah Woken, a 1st grade teacher, is also here in the building. So just lots of people that are really excited to share some of the things that we've learned and hope that they're also helpful for you. So just briefly about ENVoY. ENVoY stands for Educational Nonverbal Yardsticks. And of course they needed the O in there so they could make it a cool acronym that we could spell as a word. So we first initially heard about this a little over a year ago at Sunset Terrace. And what it is a gentleman by the name of Michael Grinder has done years and years of work with families, with marriages, with organizations and businesses, and he became very interested as well in the educational system. And his biggest curiosity was, why do some kids learn better and behave better in some classrooms than other classrooms? And he was very curious about what it was that was happening in those classrooms. And so he visited over 6,000 schools, and he started to find that there were common patterns in those classrooms. And so he started to collect all these ideas, and he found that there was about 150. And so he said that was too many to put out at once. And so he narrowed it down at first to just this fancy 7 gems, or 7 ideas of things that classroom teachers can do to help their students learn the best and help them better behave in the classroom, but at the same time, they can have a really strong relationship with their students and hold them accountable at the same time. The thing that we heard that we found super appealing was when you do this, you are calmer, you have more energy, and you have more time. And we were like, wow, what more can you ask for, right? Because a lot of times at the end of a school day, we go home and we were exhausted. And classroom teachers that have started to highly implement the skills and strategies of ENVoY have really said, yes, I am calmer, I have more energy, my students are behaving better, they're learning more. And so we got really excited about it and thought, if it can happen here, is it happening at home? And as we started to talk with some of our colleagues, we found that they were like, yeah, I've been trying this ENVoY strategy on my kids at home, and it's been working pretty well. Or, yeah, I ENVoyed my husband last night, and it worked great. So we were like, how can we take all of these strategies and share some of these tidbits with you so that hopefully you can find that same calm, peaceful time in your life as well. This was a very interesting concept for many of us to think of, that 80% of communication is nonverbal. And so when we think about communication, often we think about the words that we use. And what Michael Grinder found was that 80% of how we communicate, even a little bit more than that, really is based on the gestures that we use, how we position our body, what facial expressions are on our face, and the tone of our voice. And I know when I think of like the tone of our voice, when I think about my dog, if I tell him he's a bad dog and I'm like, but you're such a bad dog, his tail's wagging and he's happy as can be. So I get that the tone of your voice probably does play a little bit of a role with that. So we wanted to share with you a little bit tonight about just where ENVoY is besides here in Rochester, and then bring that back to Rochester and then down even into Sunset to let you know how it's impacted us here as well. So I have a short video for you.
A new program is taking off in Region 5 schools. The program is called ENVoY and involves improving the climate in the classroom through nonverbal strategies. Our Logan Gay has more on this innovative program.
The National Joint Powers Alliance has been working with the ENVoY program for almost 3 years. So far, the program has had great success in the classroom.
Classroom teachers actually gain an hour and a half of instruction each week because of the behaviors in their classroom and how their students are able to self-regulate what they do so that the teacher can teach.
The word ENVoY means educational nonverbal yardsticks. The teaching system was developed by best-selling educational author Michael Grinder.
Within Minnesota, we use one of his national trainers. We bring the trainer out to NJPA to provide presentations and background in the work. And then with that, we follow up with our trained ENVoY coach.
Pillager Elementary School is one of the latest institutions to train and certify 80% of their teachers in ENVoY.
Throughout the next years, when they are certified, teachers from other school districts will be able to come into their classrooms and see the ENVoY strategies, gems we call them, being used in a classroom effectively.
How the ENVoY program works is that teachers use special nonverbal communication to send signals to their students.
In ENVoY, they say, we use nonverbals for behavior and we use our verbals for instruction.
Offering ENVoY training at NJPA has made it easier for educators in central Minnesota to get trained and certified. In Staples, Logan Gay, Lakeland News.
Wadena Deer Creek Elementary plans to have 80% of their teachers trained in the ENVoY program by this fall.
And so here at Sunset and in the district, we are training all K-8 licensed staff in ENVoY. And we also have ENVoY coaches at almost all of our buildings right now where we can give that quick feedback to teachers as they're practicing the skills so that they can continue to refine and get better at those. The biggest thing from this video that I took away was that whole idea of an hour and a half more instruction. And so I'm just thinking for families too, if you spend a lot of time saying the same things over and over to your students, a lot of those management words. We know that as teachers, we tend to do that a lot as well. Now with ENVoY, we've tended to eliminate those pieces, and it really has given us more time to have those relationship and content conversations with our students. This is what some of our staff at Sunset have said about the impact of ENVoY, that they feel is exhausted, less frazzled, a lot calmer, and then students being able to get to work faster, as well as not trying to seek attention as much. And so we thought that that would be a great transfer as well for all of you, if you were thinking about using some of these strategies when you're at home with your own children. One of our teachers was not able to be here this evening, and she really wanted to share with you just a little bit about what she thinks about ENVoY. And so I want to pull that up so that you can see that. This is a short video from Bree Elton.
Hi, I'm Brianna Elton. I'm one of the kindergarten teachers here at Sunset Terrace. I want to start by saying I'm so sorry that I'm not here with you tonight to share my excitement for ENVoY, because I love ENVoY. I am an ENVoY certified teacher. I have been implementing ENVoY for the last year and a half about. I use it both in my professional and in my personal life. I'm going to talk about how it benefits me in both my professional and my personal life. In the classroom, I'm finding that I'm a lot more energized at the end of the day, because with kindergartners, you kind of wear yourself out. They're a little bit exhausting, but I love them. But I'm noticing I don't move as much during the day. Before, I would buzz around from table to table, helping as many as I could. Right now, with ENVoY, they're able to be a lot more independent, which means I don't have to move around from table to table to table, which gives me much more energy at the end of the day. And with them being independent, that helps our classroom environment, because they're not getting frustrated that they don't know what to do or they don't know what's expected of them. So the visuals with ENVoY help so much, and I can't wait for you to find out how to use it at home. In my personal life, I don't have any kids, but I use ENVoY on my super adorable 3-year-old niece. And I don't know if you know about 3-year-olds, but they're kind of wild, and she really struggles with cleaning up. And I use ENVoY picture clues so she knows what to do to clean up. And I don't see her all the time. I only see her every other weekend or so. But when I do use the picture clues, she responds so much better to those visuals. Like, she knows what's expected of her. If I put a picture up that says first clean, then snack, she knows she has to clean up those toys before she can have the snack. And it helps her greatly. And you're going to find out that ENVoY at home is going to help you too.
So cute. Erin wanted to share just a little bit too from a teacher and parent perspective.
So I've been using ENVoY. I was also trained with the Sunset staff last year, and in my classroom I also found that it's just much more calm, and I feel like we're not giving extra words to things that don't need it. The thing that I love most about ENVoY is we're not making the kids do anything different, we're changing what we do. And so we are able to impact the classroom on little things that we change versus making them do something different. I had an example. I had a little girl last year who honestly is as successful as she is now because of ENVoY. She's had a very attention-seeking behavior, and all we needed to do was use these gestures and pictures, and she figured out what she needed to do and is much more successful. At home I have 2 little boys, and I use it with them as well. There's a lot of those nonverbal cues that I can use to help them be successful and also allow me to have a little bit more energy myself. And we use it especially if there's a behavior, and it just helps everything to stay a little bit more calm.
Last spring, we took all of our support staff around to some of our highly implementing classrooms. And once we were finished with showing them and explaining ENVoY to them a little bit more, we asked them to just jot down in one word kind of what they felt that classroom experience was like. And when we got all of the words together after we went through this experience, I just kept thinking, if I was a child in this calm, quiet, interesting, engaged classroom, that I would be pretty happy. So just knowing how those skills transfer, and they're also visible to others as well. It's even gone so far at Sunset Terrace, we have teachers that use a lot of visuals for directions. That's a teacher visual on the left-hand side. We had some student council students that were working in the library, and there was a group of kids that came in to practice do a math test because they had been absent, and a couple of the student council kids actually wrote them directions for how to take the math test because they're so used to seeing those visuals. So for us, that just kind of said they like this. It helps them, it makes them feel a little bit more confident and independent. We also just wanted to share some of our behavior data from Sunset. The 2015-16 school year, we just took a look at overall total referrals as well as majors for disruption, defiance, or physical aggression. We were not trained in ENVoY that year. However, the next year, the 2016-17, we were trained in ENVoY, and we saw a major decrease in those referrals to the office, just because as teachers we were able to calm the students and not have it escalate to that degree. So just another thing to show how much ENVoY has impacted us here just at Sunset, and we know that so many schools are using it in the district that we're sure that they're seeing similar results. So let's get into just a little bit then of the tools and tricks that you will be able to use. Some of the things that we're going to share with you tonight are, in school, we use something that's called a private voice. Private voice really simply means just a whisper. And there is a huge power in a whisper, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll also talk about, in school we use what's called freeze body. But at home, you might consider thinking about, do your actions match your words that you're giving your child? And so we'll talk more about that as well. In school, as teachers, we look out and see, is the rest of the class annoyed by a child's behavior? At home, you might be thinking to yourself, am I annoyed by my child's behavior right now? And a lot of times those kids like to give you little hooks that just drag you in. We know that they do it to us as well. So we'll talk a little bit about that. In school, we talk about influence. Really, we'll talk about how you can just be a guide on the side for your child. And then we thought these two transferred beautifully. Just that whole idea of avoiding verbal clutter, saying what we need to say in the fewest amount of words, and then going visual. So, to get started on some tools that you can use at home, we have 6 tools for you tonight. And like Erin mentioned, the first 5 tools are really our behavior and what we can do that will greatly impact our children's behavior. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Charlie Brown, but there is the Charlie Brown teacher. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know if your children ever kind of want to ignore you like that, or maybe fall asleep at something that you're saying. I know that over the years, all of us can say, yes, I'm sure our kids, our students in our classroom probably thought we were acting like the Charlie Brown teacher. So one of the things that we learned through ENVoY, and I guess one of the things I want to say too is none of these things are really anything that's new or things that people haven't used before. It's just being systematic and strategic about how and when we use them. So the first tool we want to talk about tonight is private voice. And that power of a whisper is that transfer to home. When we use the same voice level all the time, the students and our children will tend to drown us out after a while. We become that Charlie Brown teacher. But if we can change our voice, the volume of our voice, how loud or soft we're going, and drop it down to a whisper, that sometimes will hook our children and make them just lean in a little bit more and want to hear what we have to say. Somehow it's like when you drop to a whisper, it's a secret and it's cool and I want to know what you're talking about. Whereas if you just talk in a regular voice, then it's kind of not as interesting anymore. You can also think too about the speed. When we have students and children that are really struggling with something or they've kind of started to get really upset, they're really having a hard time thinking and processing. So if we slow down what it is that we want to say to them, then that will help them to be able to process. And I know I already talked a little bit about tone and how we say things to students. Same thing with your children at home. The tone that you use might escalate a child and might get them into a power struggle with you. But if you kind of have that calm and quiet whisper voice or just a calm voice, that can really level the playing field. Another thing we wanted to talk about was tool number 2 would be your actions matching your words. So if you need your child to sit down and get started on their homework or reading or some other task, but you're moving around and doing the millions of things that you need to be doing, and you're like, I need you to sit down over there, but you keep moving, you're sending that mixed message of, do I move or should I go sit down? And they're getting confused by that because so much of what we do is nonverbal. So if we can stand still and say, I need you to sit down over here. Our body is still, we want their body to be still, we're sending that same message to them. So those are 2 ideas to consider and think about. A third tool, and one that's easy to get caught up in, is the hooks. Whenever a child doesn't want to do something, we hear that dreadful, no, I don't want to do this. No, you can't make me. No! I'm sure you've never heard the word no before, have you? So we get into those traps where we want to start arguing with them. And we know that we have all done it. And we think that it's possible, maybe some of you have done that as well. And so just being cognizant of those hooks that kids do. Sometimes their verbal hooks are wanting to help you with things, or wanting to get their brother or sister in trouble and tell you something that they did instead that was also not what they were supposed to be doing. So all of those types of things are just hooks to get you to stop thinking about what it is that you want them to do and them to be able to avoid it. They also might do visual hooks where you want them to sit down and read at night and they throw the book across the room. Or you need them to get ready for school and maybe they go hide under the bed. All of those types of things are ways that they're trying to get into a power struggle with you, because then what do they get to do? They get to avoid what it is that we want them to do. The other piece is tool number 4, which is reducing verbal clutter, which I'm not doing well of tonight because I'm speaking a lot at you. But when you reduce your verbal clutter, less is really more. And so we're going to model some of these things in just a couple made up skits that we have for you tonight to show you that power of when you want somebody to do something, really being short, just a few words. If you want them to get ready to do their homework, saying homework, and just leaving it at that. And when they come on at you with all those verbal and visual things, they're trying to hook you to get you to say more, you just continue with homework, homework. And it is so much easier said than done because they want you to get hooked and you start to get anxious and frustrated. And when are they ever going to get started on their homework? You know, it's something that could only take like 15 minutes of time to do, and somehow this 15 minutes of reading has turned into 2 hours. Why has this happened? It's because they're really good at those books. So, the greatest thing that ENVoY has reminded us of is that we have every opportunity always to break and breathe. So when they keep going and they keep going at you and you feel yourself ready to start arguing or getting into that power struggle with them, just take a step back, look at the floor, take a breath, breathe, and then come back, homework. And again, that is so much easier said than done because your breathing has increased dramatically. They're looking at you, wondering, have I got you yet? Have I got you now? So just remembering that break and breathe to help to calm ourselves for a little bit. So one of the things we'd like to try with you tonight is once kids get past that point of just no, and it's just tantrum time. And you're like, oh, this is going to last for 5, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. When are they going to stop tantruming? In ENVoY, we hear that as ride the wave. And so we'd like to try this with you tonight. We had it in our training. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of divide into sides. And so I'm going to have the center tables. When I say this side of the room, you're going to be a part of that side of the room, okay? You guys will be that side of the room. And so we're going to take roles here. For one time, this side of the room is just going to listen. We're not going to talk, and we're going to let these guys talk like crazy, okay? And when we let them talk and talk and talk and talk, we're going to be thinking too about that tantrum, maybe that one of our children has thrown at some point. They all seem like they do it. And we're going to pretend like their conversation that they're having is like that tantrum. What we're going to be listening for is what ENVoY refers to as the wave or the lull, because they're going to get loud, but at some point, in fact, it was funny, right at 6:13, we were like, should we start, should we not start? Because you had all went to a lull in the conversation that was here in the room. So we're going to have all of you talk. We're just going to listen to see if we can hear waves of volume. Again, be thinking of your own child and a tantrum they might throw and when they might get to a wave of volume. So this side, I'm going to ask you to turn to the people around you. Feel free to talk about anything it is that you'd like to talk about. What you're doing afterwards, what you've learned so far, what you're doing this weekend. But let's go ahead and just have you start talking. So some of the things that we heard was initially you were about here, and then you kind of went up, and then you guys just get quieter as we move through. So let's give them the same opportunity. So we're going to have everybody on this side just turn to somebody, have a conversation, and we're going to listen for their volume and see if we can hear peaks and valleys in what they're doing. And just so you know, this doesn't usually happen in a regular classroom where it just slightly peaks loudly and then it keeps going down. It usually keeps getting higher and higher as it goes. But one of the things that we thought of when we were thinking about that whole idea of riding the wave, and you have a child and they're starting to tantrum and they're getting really upset and they're screaming and they're yelling and they can't, and then all of a sudden they need that, they need a breath because they've kind of cried themselves out. And when they need that breath is often a great time to then jump in and have a quiet, calm voice with them to tell them what you need from them. I know that with my little cousin, when he would start crying, I don't do well with crying children, I'm just gonna put that out there. He was about 2 at the time. And he would cry and I'd be like, what? What do you need? What do you need? And of course, he's not thinking about what he needs. He's just crying because he doesn't know how to use his words as well right now. But at some point, if I'd have known that when he goes to take that breath, when he needs to finally breathe, that would be a good time for me to jump in, I'd have done a lot better babysitting. So kind of thinking about that idea of riding that wave with students as well. The fifth tool that we want to share with you is this idea of being a guide on the side for your child. This is probably one of the most powerful things that we've noticed that really helps to reduce behaviors of our students and not have them escalate, is when you are working with your child, if they're upset and you're upset, and you approach them and you're straight on, what that sends to them, that body posture message, is that we're in power, we're struggling. But if you just approach them from the side or at a 90-degree angle, then it's not as confrontational for your child, and they might be a little bit more willing to do what it is that you need them to do. What happens is their breathing stays low, which keeps them calm, which allows them time to think and process what it is that you need, what they need.
One of the things in the training I thought was really important is they talked about how when there's high breathing, your body naturally goes into fight, flight, or freeze. And in that initial, like that power struggle where the high breath comes in, it takes specifically boys about 40 minutes to an hour to come back down to a normal calm breathing. They might seem calm, but they're not fully calm yet. With girls, it's about 20 to 30 minutes for them to come completely back down. So if you are in a spot of fight, flight, or freeze and you're trying to have a conversation with the kids on where they're at, they're not going to be able to be with you totally because they're, like, chemically within their body, they're still feeling those feelings.
And so this picture that we have up here kind of shows that image of how it can be helpful, noticing that the adult is at the side of the child. Both of their eyes are also on what it is that they want to be working on. Because a lot of times when we look straight in the eye at somebody and we stare at them like, do you know the answer? Do you know what you need to do? Something like that. We kind of start to get into that fight, flight, or freeze that Erin was talking about, and it's hard to think. They kind of get that deer in the headlights, like, I don't know what you want me to do, I don't know. Whereas if we can direct our eyes away from what it is that we're talking about, that will help them and give them time to think and process. And again, always using that calm, quiet voice. So, we'd like to perform a little skit for you. I hope you can handle our acting skills. But one of the things that we talked about that's a little challenging is getting kids to go to bed at night. Show of hands, anybody have trouble getting kids to go to bed at night? All right, so some of you can feel our pain then. So, as this child is going to bed at night, as soon as I can find this.
Aaron, I said it's time to go to bed. Come on, we have so much to do. Let's go. We're not going to take forever tonight. Let's go. No, not gonna happen.
So let's pause for a moment. This might be a common evening at home for some of you. This child does not want to go to bed, clearly. And the parent is using lots of words, getting into kind of that argument stage with the child. So let's notice as the parent changes her voice and tries to eliminate some of that verbal clutter.
Aaron, it's time for bed. This way.
No, I don't want to.
This way.
Nope.
This way.
So here the parent is staying calm, as we know, often easier said than done. But by reducing what she's saying and saying the same thing repeatedly, it really doesn't give the child a lot of wiggle room. So by holding her hand in the direction of where she wants to go, that also says to the child that the actions, the body language, is matching what it is that her verbal words are saying. If you take time to stop and do these things, you can help to diminish some of those power struggle pieces that come up. Notice too, the positioning when they were together and talking, it wasn't directly straight on, they were more at the side. So let's see how the rest of bedtime goes.
Let's look at our chart for bedtime. I see we need pajamas, brush teeth, 3 books, then bed.
No.
Pajamas. Good job.
I don't want to brush my teeth. I don't like toothpaste.
Now, we all know this is going to go that smoothly, right? The first time you say it, it's going to happen just like that. But we also know that you have so many things going on, so many things that you're trying to do as a parent, that oftentimes too, we kind of hope that maybe if we give them the directions and we walk away, that then when we come back, they'll all be done and ready for bed. We also know that doesn't usually happen. So one of the things that ENVoY has taught us is put in the time now, because it ends up saving you time in the long run. So if you think back to that video of that hour and a half of additional instructional time, what if we could add an hour and a half to your nights at home each week with some of these strategies as well? So now comes the big moment. Will Aaron actually go to sleep?
But I forgot something in my backpack.
I'll check it. Time to sleep.
I'm hungry. Can I get? I'm not tired. I don't want to go to sleep. Just read one more book.
We read our 3 books. Time to sleep.
So in order to get Aaron into this bedtime routine, the parent is staying calm, trying to be consistent with it. Again, if she invests more time and keeps going with this, it will save her time in the long run. Remember that you may also need that fabulous break and breathe at some point too, and that's a great thing to use. So let's see how mom responds.
All done. Time to sleep.
No, I'm not going to go to sleep. I don't want to go to sleep. I'm not. No, I just don't want to.
It's time to sleep.
No.
And sometimes just staying silent for a little while and giving them a pause in that time can help. And I know, I keep saying it, I know it's easier said than done, but we know that as we practice these skills in our classroom, it really has changed Even though that pause is really challenging and hard to put in, again, invest that time to save time. So we want to give you a few minutes just to talk about these 5 things that we briefly went over at your tables. So if you have somebody there, or if somebody doesn't have somebody with them, if you could help them to join your conversation as well. But we'll give you a few minutes just to kind of think about these 5 ideas, digest them, and think about how they might work in your own home. You can go ahead and get started. We hope that you were able to have some good conversation and think about how you might use some of those. Again, those first 5 tools are really about what we as adults can do that will really impact what our children are doing. This last idea is when we were talking, the parents were mentioning how much like chores, general routines, homework, organization, that they're all kind of nightmares sometimes when you're at home and trying to get through all of those things. And so while we can use those initial 5 tools to help with that, one of the things that Bree really talked about in her video was how independent her kindergartners are. And just thinking about independent kindergartners doesn't seem possible. But I walk into our kindergarten rooms all the time, and I see 20 kindergartners all hard at work doing what it is they need to do. But the reason why they're so independent is because of this last idea of going visual. And that's what Bree was speaking to. So when we think about visuals, as adults, we see visuals everywhere all the time that let us know what it is that we need, how to do something, from driving on the road, going through a drive-through. Lord knows I have no idea how to put the credit card in the machine if it didn't tell me which way to do. I get so frustrated. I don't know about you guys. Lots of those different visuals that we see and use everywhere as adults. And so that transfers into our classrooms as well, and we thought that it would be an easy transfer into your homes as well. So on the left-hand side, we have an idea for 4th graders here at Sunset. This was actually taken just from today, a snapshot of what they do when they come in the morning. Other ideas of how to organize and store things from what they need. Here's an example of, on the left-hand side, this is Ms. Wood, one of our kindergarten teachers, and she greets her students every day at the door with this visual that she has in her hands. And she said it has made her so much happier because instead of saying, put away your backpack, put your folder over there, go get your breakfast, instead of repeating that over and over and over again for every child, she simply holds the visual and instead she can have conversations about, what did you do last night? Are you glad to be at school this morning? Are you hungry? Those types of things. And so she loves that piece. I popped into a 5th grade classroom the other day, and on the right-hand side, this was their good morning directions. And the teacher was going around and she was talking with students about kind of what they've been up to, freeing herself up completely for those conversations because the kids knew exactly what to do. And in fact, if you're here at Sunset from about 8:55 in the morning till 9:15, you can see that in any classroom you go into, our kids are very self-sufficient. And I imagine, I worked at Hoover, I worked at Riverside, I imagine those same things are happening all over our district. And it's that whole idea of the visual that really helps students be independent and know what they need to do. Here's another idea that Brina kind of talked about when she was talking about her 3-year-old niece. That whole idea of first do this, then do this. This is another one that's used a lot in our building. So we wanted to share this whole idea of going visual with any routines that you might have that your students do every single day, or if you can think of, oh, I always tell my child the same things over and over and over again at this time. That would be a great idea and a great time to have some visuals instead so that you can save your voice and instead just show them the pictures of what you need. It will help you be less frustrated and it'll save you energy and time. A really interesting thing that they talked about as well, along with when you're thinking about the routines that you do, thinking about the whole idea that locations have memories. I don't know about you, but if you've ever been in a room and you've thought, I need to go do this, and you need something from another room, and then you walk, and halfway when you get to the other room, like I have no idea what it was that I was going to get. And you're like, and you stand there, and you're trying to think, what was I going to get? And finally, you turn and you walk back, and you go back to the exact same spot in the room that you had been at before, and you're like, oh yeah, that's what I was going for. And you go off again. So it's that whole idea that that location has memory. So anytime that you can make sure that the same space is used for routines is also really helpful. So if you think about a homework space, having students do homework in the same spot every day, whether it's the kitchen table, in their room, wherever that is, or something like a homework cart where they have everything they could possibly need. Because if they sit down and they don't want to do their math homework, the first thing that they're going to need is a pencil. They're going to have to go find that. Then what else can they come up with that they need so that they don't have to do their math homework? I need a calculator. Oh, I need an eraser. And they keep getting up, and all of a sudden that 10-minute math sheet turns into an hour again. So if we have all of those things in one central location, they don't have anything to look at. So we're going to do one more skit for you to kind of show you the whole idea of going visual with reading.
Danielle, I need to make dinner. It's time for you to do your steps. Sit at the table, get your books out, don't forget your reading log because I need to sign that.
Let's pause here and see if we could restart this example with less verbal clutter and the parents' actions matching her words.
Danielle, I'm going to make dinner. It's time for you to do your reading.
Notice how Mom used less words. She also added a visual that made her actions match her words.
Yeah, let's go for steps. Oh, I don't want to read. Why can't I just help you with dinner?
This could be easy hook for a parent. Help with dinner could be wonderful. The mom is going to stay consistent with what she wanted. It's time to read.
I don't have any good books. I already read this one. Oh.
As adults, we have a million things to do. Spending time to be sure your child gets started reading will save you time and energy in the long run. Notice how the mother's body has remained still because she wants her child to be still when she reads. She continued pointing to the visual to reduce verbal clutter, and when she's spoken, she dropped into a whisper to avoid a power struggle. Let's see what happens.
Reading stinks. This is so boring. How about I can play a video game? You want to read with me? Come on, why can't you read with me?
This child is really trying to hook her mom into the conversation. The mom remains silent with her hand showing the expectations.
Fine, but I'm not gonna like it. Yes.
This is one strategy you can try with children when they don't want to do something. The mom will put out 6 paper clips. You can use any object in the house. Every 5 minutes of reading, take away 1 paper clip. This gives the child a better idea of when the task will end. A final note about here is that workspace. She knows where to go because that has a memory. So she knows when I'm in this space, this is what I need to do.
And so again, we know it might take a little bit longer. We know sometimes that 15 minutes of reading tries to turn into an hour. But as she was talking about, trying to reduce that verbal clutter and just being consistent with what you want is very helpful. And lots of times we know that students want to know how much time do I have left to do something. So something like a paper clip or a clothespin, something like that sometimes can be more helpful than a timer. We use timers a lot here though at school, but sometimes if you have a child who really gets hooked on that timer and they just watch it for the entire 15 minutes, you might want to try something more like the paper clip or the clothespin instead, because then they don't have that concept in their mind. So just thinking about visuals like this and how you might use visuals or how you might already be using visuals in your home. We're going to give you just a couple minutes to talk at your tables again about that. All right, if I can bring you back again. To wrap up this evening, we'd like to offer you an opportunity to grab a make and take. You can make it here, or you can take it with you, your choice. But it's that whole idea of going visually. And so different ways that it's been used that maybe you already discussed at your table. To the far left, being on the one side what it is that you need to do. And then when kids are finished and they're done with it, they can move the visual across. Similar with the middle from green to red. Sometimes people just like to kind of check it off that I've done it. I know I'm one of those people who, even if I've completed a task, I like to write it down on a to-do list just so I can cross it off. Sometimes kids really like to be able to cross off a to-do list task. So tonight what we have for you is at the tables that we have one in each corner up front here. We have a plastic sleeve and a yellow piece of cardstock that you can stick inside of it. We also have strips of Velcro for you. There's a hard side and a soft side. When put together, they will stay in one place. And then we also have some ideas of just little icons, little things that you might have students doing, like getting dressed, packing a lunch, maybe doing some chores, something like that. We also left 2 blank squares in case you decided there's something that's on this list or not something on this list that you wanted but you don't see it, you can create your own. And then there's also scissors up front as well. And so what you can do is you can take a set of all of this for each child that you have, and then either here tonight or feel free to take it home as well. Decide what it is that you want your child to be doing, and then you can create either by putting the Velcro down the sides, then they can move it from one side to the other. You could turn it this way if you wanted to. If you wanted more than one, you could take a permanent marker sometime and just draw a line down the center. However it is that works best for you. And then as your child is completing a routine, they can move the activity to the other side so that they know that they've accomplished that task and they know what's left. You could also store, if you cut them out here tonight, you can also store these leftover icons just in the back of the pocket sleeve as well, so you have those to grab at any time. So we'd like to invite you to come up to one of the tables, grab the items that you need, and then go ahead and if you want to complete that here, we're happy to have you grab some scissors, create these before you go, and grab your kids as well. If you are going to leave early at all and not going to make this here, we do have some leftovers in the back as well, and we really want to make sure we thank you for coming tonight. Julie?
Before we move, are there any questions that we can address as a whole group before everybody leaves? Does anyone have any questions to bring up?
I guess I do. Do you have any concrete suggestions for modulating your tone? I worry that, I'm getting frustrated and showing it my tone, and if I try and make myself happy, it's just false, and he knows that,
Yes. But that is something that happens to us here in school as well. The thing that we've tried to practice is that whole idea first of that break and breathe. When you know that you're escalating, feel free, it doesn't have to be like I did, just like a 1 second little step back and then coming back, because you might not be calm and relaxed yet at that point. So feel free to take some time away and say, I'll be back to see you in 5 minutes. Give yourself that time to step away and then come back, and then hopefully we can be calm then at that time too. Considering too what Erin had mentioned about how long when kids' breathing starts to escalate, it does take them a while to come down too. So just being aware of that as well.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions?
I think when kids, between parents and, so it's easy for school teams across the board. But then you're consistent. How long the learning curve is it for kids? Like, how long do you have to study?
Excellent, and maybe some of our classroom teachers can speak to that too. I know that when I went in to sub in a classroom, and it's quite scary on my part, first of all, because I don't know any of the kids, and I wonder, how are they going to perceive me? But when I've come in, and one of the things that is I come in and I just practice those things, and as long as I'm, like you said, consistent, they really catch on quite quickly. For example, if I ask for a student's attention and I pause, the trickiest part as a teacher is to really pause. And remember, it's normal childhood behavior, it's normal every human behavior to keep having a conversation and not want to finish up right away. So just realizing that pause and then being able to go forward and get their attention further. Any of the classroom teachers want to speak to it? Oh, gosh, you're saying yes to me. Oh, Hannah does.
My name is Hannah Logan. I teach first grade here. Something I've noticed that if I am giving my exit directions and I skip something, the kids will catch me on it. They'll be asking me a lot of questions like, where does this go? Or what's next? What do we do? So being consistent with myself, it has helped my kids to be more independent in that way too.
One of the things that one of the videos that Michael Brenner does is he does suggest practicing everything for 7 to 10 days at least before you decide, hey, this isn't working, or I need to refine it and try something else. So just giving that time and energy to it will help, but it's not going to happen instantly. It is going to take some time. Other questions?
You talked about verbal clutter, and I wonder if there's visual clutter. If you've noticed that you begin to change the environment of your classrooms from having so many stimulating things on the walls or in the room to focus on the important cueing visual things.
Definitely. In fact, Bree and I were just talking about that visual clutter earlier today, and one of the things that she said was that she puts visuals away and only brings them out when she needs them. Another thing, when you're thinking about environmental spaces, a way to create a calmer environment is to go with 2, at max 3 colors in the environment. When you have lots of colors, even though it's not a direction or a visual of what to do, too many colors can be too stimulating as well. So if you have 2 colors or maybe possibly a 3rd color, that really helps to reduce any visual overload. Other questions?
I was wondering for who is in charge of moving the completed task? Is that something that you should do as a parent to say okay, that stuff is moved over, or is that something that you would let the child decide when is part of it is done?
Here, I have only seen it where the child moves it. However, I think you know your children best, and you know it'll work best in your household. So it might be helpful for you to have a conversation about, maybe if you allow them to start moving the task when it's done and feeling that sense of accomplishment. But if you notice that the task isn't being completed to kind of what your expectation was for it, then taking that back and saying, I will move it, and then the next time we'll try it again and you can try it then. But I think you'll know best. Here, I only see it with the kids moving it. That doesn't mean it can't be the other way too. Other questions? Is Julie Ruzak still here? There is, I know that our Ritz is here and they're videotaping for us. Do you know if this is being uploaded or published?
It'll probably be YouTube.
You put it on
Yep,
YouTube?
the district's YouTube.
Okay, excellent. So glad you're getting to that for us. So yes, it will be on the district YouTube page. If you need help finding the district YouTube page, you just contact probably your office manager, which they'll probably all hate me for saying that now. But hopefully they'll be able to help you find that district YouTube page. Other questions? Any questions on index cards that we missed around the tables? Early childhood room as well. Should have done this before, but I totally forgot. For those of you that are still here, if you remember that one word chart that I showed you earlier that our staff had shared about that one word on a Post-it note from going into the room, we thought that was just a great feedback for us. So there are Post-it notes out on the table. If you wouldn't mind, just one word, kind of what did you feel from the presentation tonight, and materials that you get to take with. There's two chart papers, one white chart paper by that door, one white chart paper by the other door. If you wouldn't mind just writing, one word just to let us know, to give us help in kind of knowing how we can keep refining. Thank you so much for coming out tonight.